There is just one more race to go in this Formula 1 season, and finally we have seen Sam and Zak Brown together for the first time, but not in Interlagos. They were seen together in Monaco. This was the first time that the pair was seen together since the whole McLaren scandal that happened back at the end of last season, starting things off in Las Vegas. Of course, the entire saga has been going on for the whole season, but the purpose of Sam and Zak being in Monaco is that they very much were torn apart by the entire situation and decided to get together to try and set things straight and move on with their lives, which is exactly what both of them said during the Thursday press conference. From Sam's side of things, he obviously had seen a lot of information being spread around in terms of whether he was allowed back in McLaren, or this obviously the bans that were coming into place. And for Zak Brown, this was obviously a major learning curve for him. This was an element of trust that he really got wrong in terms of what staff members were right, what staff members were wrong, and also how to actually deal with internal situations like this. That is the key thing that he started to explain to Sam about where he completely failed as a team principal, and whereas Sam said that he completely failed as a driver and just a person by escalating things a lot further and bringing other people involved, with the likes of Tom and Reese both having their says on it and getting heavily involved in the matter. So the point of the Monaco meeting was just to get together, talk it all out, and try and move things forward. This doesn't mean that the two are going to be reuniting anytime soon. Of course, Sam has been confirmed to be driving for Ferrari again next season, but it definitely means now that going further forward in the future, if there was to be another stint together between Sam and Zak in McLaren, it definitely wouldn't be ruled out of the cards. Taking out the race news though for one final time this year, and Porsche remained the quickest team throughout the course of practice, but not just them, because Sebastian Vettel in the Red Bull and Sam in the Ferrari were a good enough match for Porsche in practice, especially on the race simulations. Oscar Piastri, meanwhile, for the first time really this season, was very happy with his Aston Martin car, but the same couldn't be said for Tom, who was having major issues. Reese has said for Porsche that the balance is good with his Porsche car, as he obviously looks optimistic going into the weekend, but Sam and Vettel definitely remain a threat for him going into the race. Carlos Sainz has said that he needs more from his car, particularly in the final sector, which is quite interesting that the car is decent enough in sectors 1 and 2, but struggling in sector 3, which is just uphill and flat out in a straight line, meaning that there's clearly a lot more downforce being put on that Audi, but it seems to be compromising them in a straight line. And for Tom, he says that he's just simply plain and slow, and he doesn't seem to understand why the car is so slow and to actually get the car in a better working window to allow it to be a threat. So things seem to be going in the way of Porsche going into the race, but as things happen in Interlagos, well, anything can happen. So let's get straight into qualifying and the race for one final time here in Brazil. Yo, what's going on guys, it is Foxydude here, and welcome back to a brand new video and another episode of the F1 Journey, the final round of season number 12, it's the Brazilian Grand Prix. If you guys end up enjoying today's video, feel free to drop it a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here as well. And it's time for one more ride in this Aston Martin for this year. And as you can see, it gets off to a great start with a couple of bollards being smashed over as we go wide on the exit of the last corner. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the season though. I've had a great time recording it. It's just been really hard, especially over the last couple of months, to get videos out with loads of other things going on in my life. But ultimately, I absolutely love the F1 journey, and it's a pleasure to continue to do this. So we got a 5-point deficit over Reese, my cousin, going into the final race of this season. So we need to make sure that we outscore him by more than 5 points, because ultimately, I'm pretty confident that Reese has won more races than I have this season. So we need to make it a 6-point swing in our favour. And it's going to be tricky, because here at Interlagos, I don't know what it is, I'm just not that quick, and I've been trying a lot of different things to try and get the car to work, and it's just ultimately not working for me. So yeah, not quite sure what to do and how to fix it, but ultimately this is where we are. So let's just try and get on with it. So our first flying lap was okay. This second flying lap here, well, I say okay, it was terrible because we went off at the last corner. This time around, though, no such problems. But as we go on, we're making our way now down the final straight here, foot flat to the floor now, using the rest of the battery as we open up the DRS here to get to the start-finish line. It's going to be a 1.4 second improvement, but still only in the 1-minute 5s, while the rest of the group are already in the mid 1.4s. So we're still a long way off being anywhere near to that pace. And at the moment, we're on the back row of the grid, so we need an absolutely belter of a Grand Prix flying lap in order to get things going for us heading into this race. So in towards turn 1 we go, sending the car in. It's not a great run through the first corner. The back end comes out slightly, and overall we're around about, well, actually we're matching our first sector time, so it probably wasn't as bad as what I first thought. We're about 7/100ths down on our previous best lap. In towards turn 4, get the car planted in, and that's okay, matching our performance. But it's this middle sector where we've been losing around 7 or 8 tenths every single time we go through here versus my rivals. But going in towards that right-hander, we've outbroken ourselves and gone in a little bit deep and a bit late into the corner, and now we're dropping a little bit of time compared to our previous best lap, tucking the car in as we drop it into third, now getting a gentle acceleration, and as you can see, we're not really doing any form of improvements, we're just about matching it. Last corner, and we get it really wrong, to be honest, to the point now where we're 2.5 tenths down with just the final stretch to go. We're clawing a bit of it back because we're able to use a bit more battery, but it's not going to be enough, and for us, we're going to start last in a title decider. Alright then, time for one final chance at success here in Interlagos, and it's Sebastian Vettel that starts on pole position for Red Bull, with Reese, our championship contender, the championship leader, starting alongside him on the front row of the grid. And there's an Aston Martin that's starting in P3, but that's not me, that's Oscar Piastri with a brilliant qualifying to start third, ahead of the 2 Ferraris of Sam and Lando Norris. Carlos Sainz starts in 6th for the fastest Audi driver on the grid, with Charles Leclerc lining up 7th for Porsche. Max Verstappen starts from P8 ahead of Kimi Antonelli, who is in P9 for the best placed Mercedes driver. Valtteri Bottas starts 10th for McLaren, while Vettel's teammate Sergio Perez could only line up P11, setting the exact same lap time as Valtteri Bottas, but ultimately Bottas got his run in first, and it's George Russell then that lines up 12th for McLaren. Liam Lawson is in P13, and Lewis Hamilton is in the middle of a Jaguar sandwich, starting 14th with Albon in 15th. And then it is a bit of a mixture of a Renault BMW sandwich, with Ricciardo in P16, Ollie Behrman is in P17, Pierre Gasly starts in 18th place with Van Dorn P19, and for us it is P20 and last for the Brazilian Grand Prix. Reese has a 5-point lead at the top of the Drivers' Championship. He starts second, we start last. This is going to be a challenge. Right, here we go then. It is time for the final race of the season, and it is the worst case scenario for us because ultimately we're starting last, but it's the soft to the medium compound tyres, and we've got a lot of luck that we need to try and win this championship. But with the 5 lights that are off, the race is on, and it's an okay-ish start from us from the back of the grid, but ultimately we're not exactly going to be gaining places or losing them, but we can try and gain some down the inside in towards turn 1. Getting really aggressive, probably a little bit too aggressive there, and making contact with Lewis Hamilton's left rear tyre. And we'll try and go on the outside of him now, down in towards turn 3, and we're going to get the run on him with the slipstream from the Jaguar behind. Now we'll tuck in ahead of Hamilton and make sure he doesn't get the run on us, down towards turn 4. Try to have a look there at the Jaguar in front, but nothing doing on that occasion. But from 20th up to 14th, 6 places gained off the start, and that is a perfect scenario for us. But another perfect scenario as we try and have a look there around the outside of the Jag, who broke a little bit early for my liking, but ultimately I was four wheels off the track, so I probably wouldn't have to give that one back. But we're going to go down the inside though now, into the heart of the middle sector, trying to make the move stick on him, and we're going to have to use a little bit of the battery around the outside here to make it work, and we do just that as we now go down into the last corner and onto the straights for the first time of the 36 laps in this Grand Prix. But Perez already pulling a little bit of a gap out on us now, so we've got to try and be careful not only to get back into the range of Perez, as Reese there sets the fastest lap of this race. So he's actually already taken the lead away from Vettel in the early phases. As for us though, down towards turn 1, I've got to be careful here not to full out of DRS straight away from the guys behind. Looking at the race start though, and as you can see, it's actually quite a good getaway from Reese. We'll get a perspective of what his start was like, but this is obviously just an overall one as we go down in towards turn 1, sending it up the inside. It was a little bit over aggressive, especially in the second phase of the fall of turn 1 there, so probably could have done a bit more just to be a bit cleaner, but ultimately the move around the outside of Hamilton was quite lovely. This is on board with Reese though, and as you can see, it's a great getaway from him. Brilliant start off the line there, great initial reactions, great secondary phase as well. Down in towards turn 1, he's got clear air and he leads the Brazilian Grand Prix. Vettel's ticking right behind him. As for my teammate Piastri though, it wasn't a very good start. Oscar there struggling off the line, and you're going to see in just a second the Ferrari of Sam there coming up the inside in towards turn 1 and then down in towards turn 2. Piastri will try and fight it, but he can't fight it enough, and he's actually dropped a place then off the line. So not a good run for Oscar Piastri, and he's got Lando Norris right behind him. Lap 2 of the Grand Prix though, while Reese managed to take the lead of the Brazilian Grand Prix. Vettel wants it back down and towards turn 1. This is risky stuff here from Reese because he's going to defend around the outside. Gives him the inside though for turn 2, but Vettel takes the lead back again into turn 3, but the DRS will be enabled for Vettel, not for Reese though. So here comes Sam down towards turn 4. Can he make the move down the inside? Will Reese defend his position? He just about does though, and he stays in front of Sam and stays in second place, but this is risky stuff here from Reese because he knows that he's got a championship to fight with. Everybody else is not in a championship battle, but for Reese though, he wants to win the championship by winning the Grand Prix, and he gets the lead back again from Vettel. But now Seb will have the run down towards turn 4. Not many moves being done in towards, Vettel there, lovely dummy to start around the outside, then to the inside, and into the lead he goes again from Vettel. But a lot of aggressive fighting going on straight away, and you can see there's a little bit of a train going on here. It's Vettel, Reese, Sam, Piastri, Norris, and then also Sainz that's fighting this one. Reese tries to go around the outside initially, then has to fake and go back to the inside there, as we can see Leclerc fighting hard there against George Russell in the McLaren. As for us though here on lap 6, we're going to go for an audacious move there on the inside of Sergio Perez, and that's P12 now in our back pockets as we keep trying to fight our way up the order on lap 6. That's all we're trying to do right now, is keep ourselves in contention. But lap 7 of the Grand Prix, things are starting to take a turn for the worse for myself here. Perez now has DRS to attack us. I've not got DRS anymore on the drivers in front here, and now my attack is not with just Perez, but also one of the Jaguars of Liam Lawson as well that's trying to have a look at us. So we'll fend off Liam Lawson, but we're staying behind Sergio Perez, and annoyingly now, the DRS train that we were in, we've actually broken it, and ultimately, that's my fault. We've basically, by passing Perez in a very late-breaking move, have stopped us from being involved in the train. So now all of a sudden, the train's pulling away without us. I'm having to try and stay behind Sergio Perez. Lawson, though, really wants to get involved on the act, so we do a massive late-breaking move on Sergio Perez into turn 1. That was completely unanticipated and something I wasn't into, and I didn't want to do that really, but I had to. But the problem is, right now I've got no pace whatsoever, but the issue is, with Lawson, Hamilton and Ricciardo right behind me, I can't do what I want to do, and that's to follow Perez, because ultimately, the drivers in front are battling quite hard. Here comes Lawson again, going in towards turn 1, causing a massive headache for me in this Grand Prix. We're going to get past Lawson, or stay in front of Lawson, should I say, but right now, I just want to stay in Sergio Perez's DRS and recatch the train, but annoyingly, I can't do that when I'm constantly being battled by Liam Lawson at the moment. Lap 11 of the Grand Prix though, Vettel here is trying to make a move. Oh, that's a big oversteer snap there from Vettel. He actually holds it though and gets in front of Sam going in towards turn 2. Who's going to get the DRS down towards turn 4? It's going to be Vettel. So now all of a sudden, Sam's going to be under pressure. Oscar Piastri now is going to try and go for it down the inside. Piastri makes it work for Aston Martin. Up into third now for Oscar, but crucially, Reese in the midst of me involved in my fighting for what is not even in the points paying positions. I was trying to say something in the fort about Reese, but there's a big fight going on. Sam tried to go up the inside of Piastri. Piastri defended that hard and then tried to go for Vettel, who also defended that one hard. They're really going for it in the final race here of the year, and now all of a sudden it's Piastri that's going to go into second place in the Brazilian Grand Prix. God, I wish that was me right now, but it's not, unfortunately. It's my teammate Piastri, because they're ahead, not in DRS range, and pulling away because of all this scrapping is Reese. He managed to get back past Vettel, and all of a sudden now, the fighting that's going on is allowing him to pull away and get control of this race and the championship, as now we can see Piastri defending hard against Vettel. Vettel's going to go to the inside line, trying to take it. Piastri, though, goes to the middle of the track, forces Vettel to not take the inside line, and now Sam there is desperately trying to find a way through. Lap 15 of the Grand Prix, though, back on board with ourselves here, and this is us now coming into the pits for the first time. It took us all the way until lap 15 to catch up to Kimi Antonelli, who was the guy at the back of the whole train in the first place, but he's now suffering from car problems. So it's not looking brilliant for us. But as we now make our pit stop off the soft tyres onto the medium compound tyres, it's a slow stop though. We can't get out of the pits. We're going to be stuck though right behind a bunch of cars that were all coming in at the same time. And this race is really falling away from us now. The championship is falling away from us because we just about caught the train of cars, and the pit stop had to be perfect. We had to get out as quick as possible, and ultimately that train there is what I needed to be involved with, and we're not involved with it because our delay to get out of the pits has hurt us badly. Hamilton has also got in front of us because he pitted early for the hard compound tyres. He'd actually just breezed past Kimi Antonelli, who I said has got car problems, so that's not too good. Now on lap 15 of the Grand Prix, we need to pass Kimi Antonelli because ultimately he's going to be a bottleneck if I can't get past him because he's got car problems. So we're going to do just that and get past Antonelli. Now into 14th place in this race, but ultimately with Reese out in the lead and with me down in P14, it's absolutely pointless right now because Reese will end up winning the championship by a whopping 30 points, which just feels quite wrong, to be honest, but it is what it is. Right, back on board then with ourselves. Here comes Lewis Hamilton to attack Perez. He's going to go to the inside line, down towards turn 1. Hamilton a little bit of contact with Sergio Perez. Perez will try and defend the position in the inside of turn 2. Hamilton's got him covered going into turn 3, and we're going to sneak our way through ahead of Sergio Perez. Hamilton's got DRS down towards turn 4. Will we make a lunge down the inside? No. Ultimately, the plan of action is now very clear in my head. I've got to get right back onto the back of the train that we lost out earlier in the Grand Prix. To do that, I'm going to have to work with Hamilton and Sergio Perez to DRS slipstream train my way through the order, and by setting a purple final sector, that's not actually going to help us quite a bit. And there's the train of cars in front. Lap 21 of the goal, end of lap 20 to start lap 21. Here comes Lewis Hamilton now to repass us, and I'm absolutely okay with that. Here comes Perez though to try and send it up the inside. Sergio Perez then trying to go for it. We'll go around the outside, block him off because I just want one car in front of me. I don't need two, but again, the fighting is not helping right now. If there was just one car in front of me, it would make things so much easier if there wasn't like 3 or 4 cars behind. So ultimately, we just got to be patient and make sure that we can maximize the time that's coming our way. But back on board with the race leaders here, and here's an interesting swing in the championship because I'm watching now Reese versus Lando Norris for a fighting position. I think this is a P5 at the moment, so Reese had control of this Grand Prix, and all of a sudden now, he's right back in the fight with all the other drivers held up. There we are at the start of the long straight, and there he is at the back of it. From what I gathered, there was some issues with Reese's car, and there's an issue with Oscar Piastri because he is now pulling over to the side of the track. He is out of the Brazilian Grand Prix. My teammate who was fighting with Vettel and with Sam at the front of the field is now out, and that's going to be huge for the Constructors' Championship because yes, we had a bit of a buffer over the likes of Ferrari and Audi, but it wasn't by much. So with Piastri out of the Grand Prix, that's put things in a bit of jeopardy for us because I'm only in P10 and I'm scrapping away trying to get a point in this Grand Prix, and that is not going well, and it's not going well for Reese either because here he is on lap 23 into turn 4. That's a huge double lockup from Reese. Norris goes through, Verstappen goes through, contact in the back there. Russell now trying to find a way past Reese, going in towards the middle sector. Can Reese hold the position? No, Russell's through, so Reese is going backwards now in this Grand Prix. It's getting bad to worse for the Porsche driver. The two championship contenders are both having horror shows in this race right now, as down the outside, so I say, of Sam goes Vettel to retake the lead of the Brazilian Grand Prix. It's now a head-to-head fight, Red Bull versus Ferrari for the win of the Brazilian Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc, though, is lingering in the background. You'll see him. There he is. So he's actually okay in his Porsche. Sam goes down the inside of Vettel into turn 4. The two of them will go side by side here towards the middle sector. Sam's got the outside line, though, and a little bit of an advantage in a straight line to stay in front of him. But the problem is, Reese is definitely suffering with some type of problem because he can't keep up now with everybody. He's making mistakes, he's losing time and performance, and all of a sudden now, Charles Leclerc is absolutely fine. He's got no issues, but For the rest, it's all starting to get a little bit difficult here. Now, back on board with ourselves. Here is Sergio Perez trying to make a run for it down towards turn 1. We're still not at the back of the train yet, as we're trying to fight hard to make that one happen. And we're going to go down the inside here and defend the position against Sergio Perez. But we get a bad run through the ZRSs. And now Perez is on the back of me here, going towards turn 4. And he's got the DRS. And he's going to go to the inside line, using more of his battery because I don't really have it. And he actually does a great job there. And we decide the best and sensible thing to do is just let him go and try and allow Perez to use maybe more speed if he's got it to catch up to the drivers in front. But again, we're not going to quite allow that to happen because we've got a good run here on Sergio. So we're just going to work with him now, slipstream and DRS train. The biggest problem that I've got is that I'm just really slow in the middle sector. But here's where I can get my advantage back. Under braking in the heaviest of the braking zones in the middle sector, the AIs in front, because there's so many of them bunched up together, are going to be slow. So as long as I'm sensible while driving, I'll actually be okay. With regards to the DRS on the straights, that's where I'll let Perez come back on through, and then I can use him to work together to try and get closer. And we are getting closer to the cars in front because they're really not that far ahead now. Probably a second or so ahead, 1.1, 1.2 probably at this point, but that's the back of the train. And that Porsche car that's in that train is Reese. If we can get to the front of that train, we can become world champion. It's getting closer now in this race. We've been fighting hard on these medium tyres. We've had some good pace on them as well. So now we've just got to do the magic thing of getting in that train, and by bumping Sergio Perez, ow, on a big slide there on the exit of turn 2, that's not going to help me out too much. But lap 30 of the Grand Prix, there's only 6 laps to go in this race, and now we've got Sam here who's still defending against Vettel going in towards turn 1. Here goes Sebastian Vettel, and down the inside, Sam doesn't put that much of a fight up for it, to be fair. He just accepts the position is lost, and he'll keep on battling with Sebastian Vettel as they go make their way now down towards turn 4. But here comes Sam again though. DRS will be back in his favour, and now as they make their way heavy braking into T4, he's actually got the job done back on him again. So Sam retaking the lead of the Brazilian Grand Prix, and that's job done for him. As you can see with us now, we're going to be using the slipstream of Sergio Perez in front. Perez has actually got DRS here, so crucially now, we're in DRS range of the train in front. But now, I feel that this is the time to not only pass Sergio Perez, but get to the train. If Sergio Perez has DRS, that's a critical moment, but unfortunately, he wasn't close enough on that next straight to get DRS. So hopefully in the middle sector, we can use that to our advantage. As Sam now tries to go down the inside of Sebastian Vettel. This is going to be close now between the two drivers. Sam's got a better exit though, more straight line speed, stays in front of the Red Bull. Job done. Lap 33 of the Grand Prix. This is it now. We are in the train to fight with the drivers in front. Verstappen is ahead of us, and now we're going to send it down the inside on Max Verstappen. And now we've crucially gained a position, and we can keep in the DRS train. We've got one car that separates me and Reese in this race. All of a sudden, after Reese was controlling this Grand Prix in the first stint, leading by a couple of seconds, he is now very close to, well, me actually in this Grand Prix. And from me being down in 13th odd place, not in the train and struggling for position, now things are flipped on their head. As Sainz here is going to go for it on Lando Norris down the straight. The crucial thing now, the odd thing now for me is the DRS train that's going on, because I've got to do it probably in a braking zone. But heading on to the final lap of the Grand Prix, this is now or never in this championship as we go in towards turn 1. It's a huge lockup, a huge one for Sam in the foreground. He's gone wide. We're going to go down the inside of the McLaren there of Valtteri Bottas. We've also made the position up on Sam, but it's a huge disastrous moment for Ferrari. Sam with a huge lockup there, and now all of a sudden Bottas is going to try and come back at us into turn 4. Bottas can't take the position though. We're actually going to go wide there through turn 4, and that is a huge moment for Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship. But here is Reese now up ahead, running in P6 in this Brazilian Grand Prix. But as we go in towards the middle sector, we're not close enough to mount a challenge on Reese, and even if we pass him on this lap, I've got to get past George Russell as well, at least, maybe even one more car to try and get this championship. And it's now corner by corner slipping away. The man that decided to do a new challenge in his career, he decided to go to Porsche, the team that was struggling for so many years. Last season, we saw them start off poorly. They then came back and started winning races. They started afresh this season. They've won the Constructors. They've won the Drivers' Championship. Reese crosses the line. He is the World Drivers' Champion for this season of the F1 journey, and he has done it in the most stressful format possible, because P6 is all he could get, but ultimately P6 was all he needed to get to win the Drivers' Championship. For Porsche, it's a brilliant day all round, and for Red Bull, it's a brilliant weekend for them. Sebastian Vettel is back in Formula 1. He has won the Brazilian Grand Prix, and it's the first time that Red Bull have stood on the top step of the podium this season. It's been such a difficult season for Red Bull. They've had some highlights throughout the course of the year, but they've also had a lot of low times throughout the course of the year. But for Vettel, he fought so hard against the Ferrari as Sam, and ultimately, whether Sam cracked or whether there was a problem, Sebastian Vettel came out on top. But you can see how close the pack was at the end. Charles Leclerc finishes second for Porsche. He managed to get himself on the podium, 2.5 seconds behind Vettel at the checkered flag, who was only less than a tenth actually, ahead of Carlos Sainz. Sainz with a brilliant race for Audi there, picking up P3 and literally hundredths away from P2. Lando Norris is fourth for Ferrari, 2.9 seconds off the race win in the end, with George Russell finishing in fifth for McLaren, 3.5 seconds back as the checkered flag fell, with Reese, world champion, in P6, 3.8 seconds off the race win in the end. I did have confirmation after checking the radios through these pieces afterwards. Reese did have car problems, which is why it left him in a bit of a problem. They did clear up though at some point, but the problem is when he had the car issues and was dropping back, it then meant that when they cleared up, he was stuck in all this battling, so it really cost him in the race. As for us though, P7, we really didn't have good pace around Interlagos, but I will give myself a little bit of credit where it's due. On the medium tyres, I felt a lot more comfortable and I was able to match the pace of the drivers, but ultimately the damage was done in the first stint. Even when I overtook Sergio Perez in the first stint, I was still in DRS of the drivers in front, but then I just started getting slower and slower, and then I dropped out of DRS and I couldn't get back into it again. And then I just didn't quite maximize the train effect of trying to slipstream and use a different driver to get back into the train. Because the problem is I had either Liam Lawson on the first stint, or I had maybe Hamilton in the second stint, or Hamilton fighting Perez, and I just didn't have a clean slipstream run, and I just couldn't get back into it. But ultimately, once we got back into range, again, I was able to make up places. We managed to pass Verstappen and Bottas, obviously Sam as well to an extent. But again, the problem was I'm in a DRS train, so the only place I can do it is by sending it up the inside in an audacious area. And the risk you run with that is if you get the dive bomb wrong, or lose too much time scrapping with somebody because you're then stuck with them side by side, then all of a sudden you're going to drop out of DRS again and you're going to follow the same train. So it was just fine margins. Fine margins. Bottas finishes 8th ahead of Max Verstappen, with Sergio Perez able to pick up the final points paying position. I have just noticed that it says Perez has got 2 points, but don't worry, I counted 1 point for Sergio Perez. I just forgot to edit the piece at the end there to say 1 point. So it is what it is. Don't worry about it. Looking at the second half of the table though, Lewis Hamilton finishes in P11 for Mercedes. He pitted early for the hard compound tyres, and that obviously would have caused an effect. As for Sam though, he was, leading going into the final lap of the Grand Prix, and he ends the race with no points, 7.3 seconds off at the end. Daniel Ricciardo finishes P13 for Renault. And that's a very interesting note actually there, with Ricciardo in 13th for Renault. Not because of where he finished, but Sebastian Vettel won the Grand Prix. In the span of 36 laps with no safety car and just full out green flag racing from start to finish, the top 13 were separated by only 8 seconds when the checkered flag fell. So it just shows you how close it was. And then there's a massive gap then between Oliver Behrman in the BMW ahead of Stoffel Van Dorn in the other BMW, not Jaguar. I edited this late. Apologies about that, but it is what it is. Gasly is 16th for Renault ahead of Liam Lawson for Jaguar. Kimi Antonelli is 18th for Mercedes, and then it's Alex Albon and Oscar Piastri that failed to finish for this race, which is a real shame. Sam did actually set the fastest lap as well for Ferrari with a 1 minute 6.467, so imagine if he actually finished the Grand Prix in the points, he would have had that extra bonus point coming his way. And why that's critical is because if we now move to the Drivers' Championship, it all goes wrong for Sam. But we won't talk about him just yet. We need to talk about Reese. He is the world champion this season. I believe that's his third world championship now in the F1 journey. I'm pretty sure he's won 3 titles. So he's a 3-time world champion, if my maths is correct, and if I remember my history of this series long enough. But ultimately, on 253 points, he is the world champion by 7 points over us this season. And ultimately, it comes down to the fact that the two of us were just super competitive all season long. We both had weekends where we were quicker, and we both had weekends where we were slower. And ultimately, we also took advantage of each other in different scenarios throughout the course of the season. But I think if you look at it overall, I think Reese was probably a more deserving champion this season. I'll admit it, especially the final 4 races of the season. We were in the lead and we were in the driving seat. You know, especially after not just before Canada. You know, even the Canadian Grand Prix was a swing because we were quicker than anybody else around Montreal, and we should have won that race after overtaking Reese and building a gap. But we had that penalty come our way. Imagine if we actually won that race, we would have finished level on points in this season, but we didn't. But the key thing is, after that Canadian Grand Prix in particular, Reese just kicked into another gear that I just couldn't match it. And it wasn't like I was constantly going slow. Reese was just rapid. You know, the races in Vegas and in Kota, he was just so quick. Even here in Brazil, the first stint, he constantly was able to take the lead, get out of DRS trouble, and just control it. The biggest problem for me throughout the course of this season, and I'll happily admit it, is my qualifying. I haven't been able to qualify well at all. I've just been struggling to get the car working. In the races, I've been a lot more comfortable. And I know exactly why I haven't been able to be great in qualifying. The simple fact of the matter is, when I come to record these races, I don't practice at all. I don't put any time in to understand the setup, to get laps in. I literally load up the game, load up the race, and my first laps ever in the car, in that track, is the first qualifying lap. So as the race goes on, I get more comfortable and I get quicker. But ultimately, you know, that's kind of where it comes to. If I literally allowed myself practice, then yeah, sure, 100%, I would probably be quicker. The only time that wouldn't have been possible is here in Brazil, because I actually recorded a previous race of this Brazilian Grand Prix. And as soon as the checkered flag fell and it faded to black to go to the bit where you see the podium celebrations, the game crashed and I couldn't get any replay cameras, so I opted to re-record the full Grand Prix. So I had a full race under my belt and I changed my setup and it ultimately didn't work. Charles Leclerc, though, finishes 3rd in the Drivers' Championship for Porsche. A complete contrast, because last season, I actually checked, he finished 11th in the championship, or even 12th, so way off of it. But George Russell is 4th in the championship at 163 points. As for Sam, he was 3rd in the championship, and he would have solidified that had the issue on the final lap not happened. Ultimately, that dropped him to 5th now in the championship standings, with Carlos Sainz finishing P6 for Audi. But it's a big shout out though for Sam. I know he's finished 5th in the championship, but he had such a horrible time in his first half of the season for Audi to then come and join Ferrari and then not only be a part of the team, but then go ahead and beat Lando Norris is a credit to what Sam has been able to do. But it is what it is. It's a disappointing season for Ferrari. Sebastian Vettel finishes 8th in the championship in the end, overtaking Max Verstappen after this race victory. Verstappen ends 9th in the championship, with Valtteri Bottas claiming P10 in the World Drivers' Championship. Now, as we do for every single time when it comes to the final race of the season, let's show you what the second half of the table looked like in terms of the championship standings, because don't you worry, I always keep an eye out on every single team on the grid and see how they're getting along. It's Kimi Antonelli that finishes 11th for Mercedes. He totaled 83 points throughout the course of this season, with Lewis Hamilton finishing 12th in the championship, a mere 42 points for him this season. A really disappointing season for Hamilton. Oscar Piastri actually only was, what you can see there, was only 3 points behind Hamilton in the championship once this season finished. If the engine didn't fail for him, he might have potentially have won the Grand Prix, and that would have catapulted him ahead of Hamilton, but ultimately he has to settle for an unlucky P13 ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, who is P14 with 35 points to his name, Sergio Perez with 25 points in P15 for Red Bull, and then it's the two Jaguars, Liam Lawson and Alex Albon. Lawson with 14 points, Albon with just 4, and it's an unfortunate trio for Ollie Behrman, Pierre Gasly and Stoffel Van Dorn. All of them in the two BMWs and the Renault failed to score a point throughout the course of the season. Taking a look at the Constructors' Championship now and seeing how that ended off, and it did end with a twist in the tail because Audi beat Ferrari by 1 point. And guess where all those points came trembling away from? Sam's lockup into turn 1 that sent him from 1st to 12th. That is what has caused a disaster for Ferrari. They were on... In fact, if you put Sam back into where he was position-wise, Ferrari would have jumped Aston Martin, ourselves, to finish 2nd in the Constructors' Championship. So in the span of one corner, a provisional 2nd in the Constructors ended in 4th in the Constructors. Porsche, though, well, they've had an insane season. 419 points to their name. They've been incredible all season long. And like I said at the end, they started last season with a car that was completely wrong. They had 2 different models. They went with the one that the wind tunnel said was the fastest, and ultimately it wasn't, and it was the other one that they had to go with. They swapped to the other system, but they lost, or the other car should we say, and pieces of bodywork they put on. They swapped to that one then, midway through last season, and started to build on it, but ultimately they lost ground, they lost time, and they tried to catch Mercedes, and it didn't work. And then coming into this season, they started things off right. They've had a brilliant car, and they're not only the World Drivers' Champion with Reese, but they're Constructors' Champions with themselves. Aston Martin, it's 2nd in the championship. We did give Porsche a run for their money, but ultimately, during the second half of the season in particular, they scampered off into the distance, and there was nothing we could do to stop them. Audi, Ferrari and McLaren have been so competitive all season long. It was just a case of who was just going to come out on top, and on this occasion it is Audi by a point. McLaren fell away in the final few races of the season. Development definitely cost them, and they finished on 259 points. Red Bull finish in 6th in the end. The win for Vettel definitely obviously helped them to secure that position, but Mercedes-Benz, probably the most disappointing team out of anybody in this entire season. They are back-to-back Constructors' Champions. They won the Constructors' Championship last season, and I believe Hamilton was the world champion, if I'm remembering correctly. And then the season before that, they won the championship, and then we won. I won the Drivers' Championship then. So to finish now down in 7th with 116 points, it's an awful season for Mercedes, and one that they'll hope to try and bounce back through next season. Renault finished in 8th for this year. It's a decent result for them, but only 35 points. Same with Jaguar, P9, 18 points to their name. Ultimately, Renault and Jaguar were quick in the tracks with high speed, but ultimately, that's just not enough of them, and they just don't have consistency in the corners. And for BMW, they just didn't have a car good enough in any race to score points, and ultimately, they finished right at the bottom, completely pointless. But let's go take a look at the post-race notebook now one final time and hear from our new world champion and some of the other drivers after this race. Taking a look at the post-race notebook one final time, Reese wins the Formula 1 World Drivers' Championship, and he managed to do it while surviving a power unit issue to beat Tom after Tom's fight back in the Grand Prix, where he started P20 and battled his way all the way up to P7 to finish just 1 place behind Reese, leaving a 7-point gap at the top of the championship at the final race. Reese has said that this is his best season ever in Formula 1. Now a 3-time world champion, despite all the other ones that he's had previously, Reese feels like this is his best one to date, as he had to go through many difficult periods, especially in the middle of the season when Tom really picked up his form, to then fight back in the final part of the season to come through and win the championship. and his cousin Tom had nothing but praise for Rees and Porsche after their story together. Of course, as we've said many times already throughout the course of this Grand Prix weekend, Rees and Porsche started off the story to try and become world champions together in a very bold and ambitious statement after the seasons that Porsche had prior to these last two. But after working hard together and ultimately battling their issues from the start of pre-season last year, they've come together to win the Constructors and the Drivers' Championship and ultimately have fulfilled their dream. Ferrari have officially confirmed as well that Sam suffered a brake failure throughout the final laps of the Grand Prix, and it was something that he was managing anyway, and the lockup that cost Sam not only the win, but also Ferrari third in the Constructors, maybe even second at that rate, was down to the fact that Sam's brakes had eventually been worn so badly that they eventually just failed, and he locked up going into the first corner. But that is it for Season 12 of the F1 Journey. Genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for watching this series and keeping the love and the interest going for it. As I've said, it takes a hell of a lot to make an F1 Journey episode, but I wouldn't change it for anything. And I'm just really grateful that you guys continue to support it, and I just am grateful that I keep getting to make it, because it is genuinely a lot of fun for me. It is one of the most fun for me, as well as time consuming as it may be. While the F1 games just don't really have my interest as much now, I still have pure interest in the F1 Journey, and I'd love to come back again for a 13th season on F1 25. So if you guys will look forward to that, then obviously drop it a like, subscribe if you're new around here as well, and this is it for the F1 Journey Season 12, and I hope to see you again in the near future for Season 13 on F1 25. Take care all guys, peace.